let me question you a little bit about what we saw earlier today.
Yeah, so I mean, with respect to Elden Ring, I think everything I saw was pretty consistent with my expectations in that it feels like a continuation of Dark Souls. Like, the things that jumped out at me, like broadly speaking, like covering the entirety of the video, not anything specific, but the reused assets in the sense like reused animations, movement animations, reused weapon animations, reused audio cues. Like many of the audio cues were the same. In fact, the Estus was like one of the only things that jumped out at me as being substantially different. Many of those things were reused, and I started thinking about it, and I realized like a lot of those things have been around since like Dark Souls 1, and maybe even earlier than that. And I'm kind of divided a little bit in how I feel about that, because on the one hand, definitely makes it more accessible. People like us that have played Dark Souls 3 are certainly going to have an advantage starting off. We're going to have instant familiarity with a lot of the mechanics. But then I also feel a little bit of regret. It's kind of a missed opportunity to have done something really different, which, they may do at some point in the future. So for right now, though, it definitely, I felt a little conflicted about it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think I fall in the same boat as you. This is like you said, I was expecting that as well, like for the game to feel very similar, kind of almost a copy paste. And yeah, it is the natural progression for games. Like in a studio, you don't want to throw away all the assets that you've worked so hard to create, such as animations, models, all of that. You always want to sort of use them for the next thing, which is fine. It's just that, to me, what I care about the most in these games is, I like, first of all, from a PvE perspective, I like the challenge. I like a challenging experience. I like the exploration, the customization of that. And I think that the exploration part is going to be there. It looks amazing. The customization, again, fantastic. The challenge part, though, it does leave me with a big question mark when I look at this from a PvE perspective. Like, one thing that really struck me watching this is how easy it is to traverse the world. Like, I look at this gameplay and the guy just flies by so fast on horseback through anything and everything in the open world. It's almost careless. You know what I mean?
And it's which is completely inconsistent with the way that Souls games have worked. Souls games were one of the key markers. It's not even that, like, and set aside bosses, set aside some key moments. It's not even like that dark. If I think back to when I first played Dark Souls 3, it wasn't that it was a hard game per se. Rather, it was a game that demanded that you pay attention. Like, you just couldn't go running through the game. You had to be mindful of different cues, audio cues, visual cues, looking for traps, making sure that you're not about to get ambushed or get blindsided by too many enemies, which required you to take your time and go at a certain pace. And I agree, like the horseback almost makes it seem like you can just ignore the PvE. That's sort of the impression I got, and blaze through the game, which really makes me wonder. Like, to me, it's going to depend, like, what percentage of game time am I going to spend traversing, like, on horseback in the open world? Like, if it's like 5%, which it might be, like, then that could be okay. But if it's a much higher percentage, then I don't know, that could be a little strange.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have this incentive to go and explore and go grab stuff and go find stuff, I feel like it might, like you said, trivialize a lot of the PvE parts in the open world. Like, if you're just trying to do the objective, looks like you're going to be able to steamroll through like a good, 50 to 90%, whatever portion of the game the open world represents. And then when it comes to the dungeon, it looks like it's going to be more familiar to the sort of stuff we know. But this is one of my worry about the open world. Let me ask you about seeing this combat that looks oddly similar and oddly familiar. Like, would you say that you are going into Elden Ring thinking that you're going to spend the same amount of time that you spent in Dark Souls 3, or would you say that because it does look familiar and somewhat close to what you already know, do you think you will get bored of this quicker?
That's a good question. So overall, I'm anticipating I'm gonna spend a lot less time playing Elden Ring, but that's more because of like personal choices and lifestyle changes that I've made, and less about the game itself. I think there's gonna be enough new there that I still think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna have challenge for a long time. I expect we'll be finding things just as we are with Dark Souls 3. We're still finding things now. And your points earlier about innovating, there's things that we could have figured out years ago but haven't. I expect there'll be plenty of those sorts of things in Elden Ring that'll keep us busy. I think the ability to change like weapon arts or whatever they're called in Elden Ring and sort of hot swap them from weapon to weapon, I think is a very intriguing setup that I think has a lot of potential. Although I have to say, I cringed a little bit at the sight of quick step on a straight sword. But we'll have to see. Now, what do you think?
Seeing all the weapons that we saw in that gameplay reveal, like looking at all the weapons individually, looking at it from a critical PvP perspective, I look at all these attacks and I'm not seeing any attacks that I would think to myself, okay, I'm going to integrate this into my current playstyle, right? What I want for Elden Ring is have more attacks that are viable in that core 1v1 situation. Basically, I want ultra weapons to be a bit better. I want great swords to be a bit better, halberds, axes. I want just weapons to be a bit better so that they can be used to compete with whatever your opponent is using. And so far, I'm not really seeing that in all the new weapon arts, despite the ability to switch them around. Like, the attack themselves have to be good enough to be used in core-to-core situation, in close-quarter combat, not just situationally. Situationally, you can make a use case for a lot of these, but like at the very base, you need somewhat of a faster type of attack so that they're hard to dodge, or they have a large area of effect with a lot of active frames. Like, there's sort of stuff that I'm looking for that I'm not seeing here so far that kind of worries me.
That's definitely true, but I think a couple things. One, there's still a lot of this we haven't seen, and it makes sense that they might keep some of the bigger changes under wraps for now. So I think that still makes me a little hopeful. The other thing is, so much of, let's say, like Dark Souls 3's play revolves not just around the weapons and their moveset, but things like the two attack sort of hit stun model. Now, do I expect that they're going to change that? I do not expect that, but it is a possibility. They may have tweaked it in some ways. And I mean, from melee combat, even what may seem like superficially small changes can have big ramifications in how people play a game. And so I think there's still an open door for a lot of those things. And I also think at the end of the day, Dark Souls 3 represented up until then kind of the culmination of everything that FromSoft had learned about melee combat, about game design, about everything. And if I look at the sort of trajectory from Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, I see improvements at every step. Like every game, the melee combat is fundamentally just better across the board in every respect. You can argue about the overall game design being better or worse. I know some people really love Dark Souls 1, think Dark Souls 3 was a step back, maybe, but from a melee combat perspective, no way. Like Dark Souls 3 is so much better. And so I'm hopeful, From knows what they're doing, and they're going to make the improvements they need to make. And the last thought here, the biggest thing I would like to see From do is to, support these games, and not just support them for a while, but also pay attention to the things you mentioned, like making ultra great swords more viable. Try speeding them up by a couple of frames, try tuning these sorts of combat mechanics, and over time make iterative improvements to ensure that more weapons are viable. There's a space for every sort of weapon, and I'm not hopeful that they're going to do that, but I should say I'm not optimistic that they're going to do it, but I am hopeful that they're going to do it.
I actually am optimistic that they're going to do that. I like that you're keeping a positive mind as far as like we haven't seen everything, so there's more likely like a lot more in store. When it comes to From Software improving the game, I'm actually pretty positive about that because I've mentioned that in a lot of streams recently. If you go and do a Google search and find the wiki page for the patch notes, the Dark Souls 3 patch notes since the game has been released, you will see, Amish, like a list that is so long and detailed, like little tweaks here and there, changes to so many weapons, and very like specifically related to player interaction. Like those modifications, those patches are like specifically applied and designed for the PvP audience, and there's so many of them. So I'm actually pretty positive in that regard. I do feel like they will iterate, like you mentioned. They will definitely improve on a lot of the stuff that we have now, and I also think that they will improve on that a lot from the beta or the network test releases to the release. We've seen that in Dark Souls 3 when the Dark Souls 3 network test released. The Zweihander had the Astora weapon art, like, or moveset or whatever. Like, the Zweihander and the Astora had, like, inverse moveset. So I think there's some changes that are possible there. And I think we'll see differences in the network test and the final release of the game. And then after that, I do think that we're going to get iterative patches to improve upon that even further. But, yeah, like, even though we mentioned all of that, and I'm sort of like not necessarily worried, but I'm hopeful that we get better balance. I'm still very satisfied with what I've seen. Like, I am very positive and excited at the end of the day. Like, what's your general feeling?
No, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm very positive. In fact, I've never really looked forward to the release of a video game very much before. And I mean, the hype for this game, I think for probably a lot of us feel this way, is that really like a fever pitch, because first of all, we've gone a long time without a new like From PvP game. It'll be like 6 years by the time this thing comes out. We got teased with it like almost 2.5 years ago, and then heard literally nothing for 2 years, which was just crazy and drove all kinds of speculation. And so just from that alone, like, I'm looking forward to it. And I have so much confidence in From Software. Like, they have demonstrated time and time and time again their ability to deliver an exceptionally compelling video game performance. Like, I can't think of many studios, like maybe Valve is another one, that just is always able to hit it out of the park. So I'm not worried about being disappointed. I'm not worried that I'll come away thinking like this isn't a great game. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. So yeah, overall, I would say I'm very optimistic.
Nice. Yeah, well, I guess it's been about 15 minutes, so I don't want to like hold you or anything, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much everything. I guess we can do like another thing like that another day where we talk about this a little bit more. We could do another one of these discussions for the network test if you want.
You know what? That actually sounds like that would be really fun. I hope we all get in. I mean, I know I signed up. I'm sure obviously you did. So I'm hoping. I think I heard for Dark Souls 3, essentially, if you signed up, you got included. But for sure, I would love to do something like that with you.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, that's it for me. Thank you so much, though, Amish. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, man. I also had a lot of fun. I hope everyone listening to this enjoys it. So, JeeNiNe, thanks again for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.